Welcome, everyone. It looks like there's about 45, 50 of you on the line to learn about this important product evaluation program for ASHTO Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions. So I want to welcome you to the educational webinar for sign sheeting materials and roll-up signs. Thanks for joining, and I am Catherine Molesky, the Program Director for ASHTO Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions. Today's presentation is about the evaluation of sign sheeting materials and roll-up signs. You will see it commonly referred to by the acronyms SSM and RUP. This webinar is intended for state DOT members only. So if you are a manufacturer, I ask that you please leave. I also want to recognize that a lot of you are hearing about this program for the very first time, while many of you might be have a diverse background in it already. So this presentation that we're about to show you today really does cover a wide variety of topics as it relates to this specific product evaluation program. A recording of this webinar will be available on the ASHTO Product Evaluation Audit Solutions YouTube channel at the conclusion of today, at the latest tomorrow. There will be times at the end to answer any questions related to the information given during the various presentations we're about to do today. If you have a question that does come to mind, you can either enter it in the chat box or the Q&A section that you see at the bottom of your screen, and we can certainly answer it, like I said, at the end of this webinar. So if your state does a lot of product testing or perhaps sends people to, out into the field to collect different samples, then this program itself can save time and expense from each of the state DOTs doing this work by themselves. If your state has limited resources for product testing and can't afford to send people out to collect either these samples or conduct the laboratory testing by themselves, again, this program serves an invaluable source to you so that your state can then utilize the test data resulting from this program to identify what products can be used either, on stop signs or any type of signing along the roadways and bridges. So the goals of this program, again, this is a product evaluation program. Those of you that may be familiar with the entire ASHTO Product Evaluation Audit Solutions program realize that we've got an audit component. This, again, strictly, we're talking about product evaluations themselves. And this serves as an unbiased source for the state DOTs to collect this information in an unbiased way. It saves states the resources that would otherwise be expended on in-house product evaluations themselves. Also, this program provides access to the product evaluation data that individual states may not have resources to perform by yourselves. Also, from the manufacturer standpoint, it saves them resources. So they're not going to every state DOT asking to have their sign sheeting material evaluated by that specific state DOTs. They're really relying on this one-stop shop source to have the manufacturers be able to go in and submit their application to have their product evaluated. And then all agencies can then access that data through what we call our DataMine website. So the concept of the program, the technical committee designs the product evaluation in this case. So the technical committee is made up of state members as well as industry members. It's a joint partnership that puts together the program. The resulting work plan, which is utilized to conduct these product evaluations, does get balloted to the ASHTO member states. So this is important to realize, because if you're you're looking at these slides today and you're saying, oh, well, my state DOT can use most of this program, but there's one component missing. You have the voice to make that change. So, if you're not on the technical committee and by the end of this educational webinar, you identify that there's a need or that you could lend a helping hand to make a change so that your state DOT can utilize this program, by all means, reach out to me. Our contact information is going to be included in the slides at the end of this presentation. So the manufacturers, are responsible for submitting their products to be evaluated. And they are also responsible for paying for the fee associated with having this testing conducted through this product evaluation program. So they are all the testing conducted is done by contracted laboratories. In this case, they are state DOT laboratories that are contracted through AASHTO. And the test results in the audit, in the case of the audits, but the test results are made available to those state DOTs that are registered in DataMine. So again, if you are not registered in DataMine, it's called, and you want to have access to this data that's about to be shown to you today, reach out to any AASHTO staff member, and we can certainly help accommodate your requests there. The product evaluation program itself. So we do not pass or fail product test data. We simply report that test data out, and then really it is the responsibility of the state DOTs to determine how that data measures up to your state specification that you have in place. It does not replace the quality assurance activities of the state DOTs or the manufacturers. So this can act as an enhancement if your state DOT does not have a robust product evaluation program for sign sheeting material, or you do not have the resources in place to test this product, then it's easily adoptable for your state to take into consideration this test data and then utilize it as you see fit within your agency. This program does not supersede state requirements, meaning that if this program requires some sort of testing to be done at a certain interval and your state would like to see it done more frequently, then of course manufacturers really do have to adhere to what the state DOT is asking them to do in order to provide product to their states. It does provide, like I mentioned earlier, unbiased data. So again, this is really a very big driving benefit for the program, because state DOTs are not relying on the manufacturers to submit test data directly to you. You are able to go into DataMine, access this data. Again, the data is coming from those designated test laboratories that are contracted through AASHTO to do this work. So here's just a snapshot, especially those that may be introduced to AASHTO Product Evaluation Audit Solutions for the very first time today. These are the different product categories. So this product evaluation program is very comprehensive. We test a variety of different types of products. We run the whole gamut, over 20 some different product categories. Again, today we're going to be focusing on sign sheeting materials and roll-up signs. For today's educational webinars, the speakers are as follows. Jim Swisher is the technical committee chair. He works at Virginia Department of Transportation. Also, Jason Davis is the vice chair for this technical committee. He works at Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development. I introduced myself earlier, Catherine Molesky, the program director for AASHTO Product Evaluation Audit Solutions, and I'm also currently the liaison for this technical committee. And last but not least, we've got Bill Reel, who is a contractor for AASHTO Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions. Now I'd like to turn it over to, I believe, Jim, who's going to talk more in depth about the sign sheeting material and roll-up sign product evaluation program.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that information. As she said, I'm Jim Swisher, the chair, and I'm delighted to have a great vice chair, Jason Davis, that works greatly with me and all the folks in this technical committee. So to get right into what we do, if you're new to sign sheeting, you come to the right place. If you need a refresher, we've got good info for you. But what you're seeing here are just pictures. On the left, you see the outdoor weathering racks of the SSM, or the rigid signs, and then on the right you have an outdoor weathering rack of the roll-up signs. Okay, moving right along. Let's see, I'm waiting for the next slide. There we go. So basically, our evaluations are based on two specifications. Most states follow the ASTM D4956 standard spec for retroreflective sheeting for traffic control. And we also have another spec that is the AASHTO M268 spec, retroreflective sheeting for flat and vertical traffic control applications. So these are two specs. Most folks will use the ASTM spec. It's broken down into different types of sheeting, type 1 all the way through type 11. And these are based on the retroreflectivity levels and at prescribed different geometric angles. So we'll talk a little bit about what we mean by the geometric angles. AASHTO M268 is based more on a performance type of specification. This spec was developed many years ago, and it's still being developed. There's a concern that DOT users want to understand more about the performance and how that relates to them approving products. So M268 was developed years ago, and it's still being developed now. ASTM is also working to come up with a more of a performance type of spec, and they're working to better define performance, and that's being handled in the ASTM D4956 group right now. As far as the work plan goes, we have a work plan for both the rigid and the roll-up signs, and you'll see here that for the rigid or SSM work plan, we evaluate rigid and reboundable sign sheeting, and we'll get into the testing in just a few minutes. But basically, we test samples when they're new, and then we weather them for 6 months, 1, 2, and 3 year, and do the testing at those intervals. For roll-up signs, similar type of evaluation. We test them new, and then they're tested at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. So that data is available on the DataMine. Okay. And just to get into the what we actually do every year for signs, for both the rigid and the roll-up signs, the manufacturers will submit products to the group in December and January, and we will look at who has submitted these products, and then we'll evaluate which products can be tested. And once that's decided, then we will set up to fabricate these samples. And what you're seeing here is just a picture of samples that are being shipped to VDOT for fabrication. And what VDOT does is we fabricate these samples, and you can see the aluminum there. It's a 4 by 12 inch aluminum blank that we affix the rigid sign sheeting to the samples. And we'll talk a little bit about the roll-up preparation as well. Okay. So once the sheeting is accepted and we've received it in the sign shop, we will invite each manufacturer to come to the sign shop, and we'll fabricate the samples with the manufacturer's expert overseeing the fabrication. So you can see on the left a picture of sign blanks and sign sheeting going through a roller table, and then on the right we end up trimming that sheeting to get the samples ready to be labeled. And once we label those samples, then we will send those samples off to the different DOTs. Virginia has their own outdoor weathering rack, so we will keep a group. We will also send samples out to Louisiana, Arizona, and Minnesota. And in terms of the roll-ups, similar process goes on where the roll-up material is sent to Louisiana DOT, and they prepare the samples. And Jason, feel free to jump in and give us some more information.
Making sure I'm unmuted there. So yeah, we have a very similar process with the roll-up signs. The manufacturers actually seal the edges on those signs to prevent damage from water infiltration. And I think that's similar to how the finished signs would actually be prepared. And we send, just like Jim does, we send the panels out to the various test racks for field weathering. So the test decks, we have 4 test decks for sign sheeting materials: Arizona, Louisiana, Minnesota, and Virginia, and 3 for the roll-up signs. That's Arizona, Louisiana, and Minnesota. Those test decks represent different climate regions. Arizona would be hot and dry. Louisiana is hot and humid, and Minnesota is cold. I forgot exactly what Virginia is, Jim. Coastal?
Virginia is hot and cold.
Okay, so you got a little of everything. And so, as Jim mentioned, the testing that is performed on the sign, both the sign sheeting and the roll-up sign materials are based on the ASTM D4956 specification. And so we run the optical tests for coefficient of retroreflection. We run that also with both a laboratory instrument, the light tunnel, and the portable instrument with the portable retroreflectometers. And then we run color. We also run physical testing, impact, flexibility, just the various tests that are described in 4956. And then we also have the weathering appearance, any oddities that we note on the material, or if there's damage to them in any way. Do they blister, chip, shrink, peel off the back panels, which we have had. So before the panels are put out on the weathering rack, we run our initial optical tests. And again, this is retroreflectivity in color, both in the lab and with a portable instrument. And then we also have a control panel, which is unexposed. That remains in the lab, generally in a dark box, a file cabinet. And that's our comparison sample to compare against when we look at all of the data. And so we have the battery of laboratory physical tests as well. We'll test for impact resistance. And there's 2 levels of that. One for the standard sheeting that will be on a vertical sign. Others is for the reboundable sheeting that might be on a traffic cone or traffic barrel. We test to see how the material releases the adhesion backing after it's been exposed to heat for a while. Does it still release easily? There's a flexibility test for both different types of sheeting, the sign sheeting and roll-up signs. And we have a shrinkage test, adhesion test that determines the resistance to peeling off of the substrate. And again, those are all tested according to ASTM D4956. So 2 of the 3 panels that are sent to each of the test decks for each submittal, they're placed out on the South 45 test deck. And what we mean by South 45 is literally it's a test rack that is facing 45 degrees to the horizon at a direction of due south. And in the northern hemisphere, the south-facing exposure at 45 degrees to the horizon provides the maximum amount of UV irradiance and light on the samples. So these panels are tested at 6 months and then yearly for 3 years. And we're considering the 3 years of South 45 to be approximately 7 years of a typical exposure on vertical sign face. So we consider this to be accelerated weathering. And we have a similar setup for the roll-up signs. Again, 2 of the 3 panels are exposed. I know this picture shows 3 stock footage, of course. And we only test them for 1 year. The specification in ASTM is 6 months, I think. But we test them for a full year, and we consider that to be equivalent to approximately 2 years. And then those are tested at quarterly intervals. So once we start collecting the data, we want to make sure that any data that we put out has been properly vetted and is accurate. The data validity is the most important part of this program. If it can't be trusted, it's not worth that much. So we have multiple checks to catch any errors, issues, any readings that we might want to recheck. So the lead state will compare data from each state. This is after the testing state would check their own data, but then we give the manufacturers a chance to review their data and catch anything odd that they see. And only after all of these steps would we be able to release that data to the public. If a manufacturer chose at that point to withdraw their material, they're not satisfied with the performance of their material, or they notice something that just doesn't seem right, they have the option to withdraw those products prior to publication. So all of the data is stored in the DataMine, which can be accessed at datamine.transportation.org. And if the data is public, it can be accessed without a login. If you're a state user, you can get a login. The login credentials will allow you some additional options. You can look at product brochures or additional information on the samples, as well as see some of the restricted data that might be held from the public, but the states will be allowed to see it. So if you're logging in, or even if you're not, under traffic safety, the roll-up sign and sign sheeting materials options are both there, and those will take you to the data. So you click on one of those, in this case, the sign sheeting, you'll be presented with a screen that shows all of the different materials that are in the database. We have 810 readings right now that are in that database. On the left side of the screen, you can filter to show different years, what the product status is, if it's been only completed samples, or various colors. If you know the specific product name, you can search for that, or companies. So once you click on a submittal number, that will bring you to the data page here. So this initial page is product information for that specific submittal, and you can find the company name, their website, a contact for that company if you want to ask any questions or get more information. There's product information, brochures, safety data sheets, that type of information. But I think what everybody's most interested in is going to be the test data. And so when you click on the test data tab, you'll be presented with a test summary here. And up at the top, you can select the site name. That's going to be which test deck you're looking for. And you'd be able to see a test summary here. The data here is going to be the field data. So everything here is based on weathering, your initial readings, and then all of the intervals. The base sheeting up there is the physical testing and some additional retroreflectivity and color measurements. So when you start looking at each of these different properties, you would be able to see the data for each different test, in this case, the portable retroreflectivity. But you can also see the status of each of those intervals there for the release status. So you'll be able to see what's been released to the public. And in some cases, depending on your access, you will have different different colors of the data will show up, or in this case, asterisks, depending on again your level of access to the site. Data in black means that it's been released to the public. If it's in red, that means it's on hold. Generally, that means that the testing states or the lead states are reviewing the data before it's released to the manufacturer for review, and that'll be in green. And if there is something in a restricted status that's a states only access, that data would be in blue. So once you have all that data, a lot of people want to ask, what do you do with it? There's a bunch of numbers out there, and what do you compare it against? So Louisiana, this is the tool that we use when we're looking for material to add to our approved materials list. This is written into our qualification procedures that to get onto our approved list, we require for permanent sheeting 3 years of weathering through the AASHTO product evaluation and audit solutions. I'm still having fun saying that one. And 1 year for the roll-up signs. So we're going by the ASTM specifications in this. This is a spreadsheet that we've used for a number of years. And basically you take the data from the website, plug it into this spreadsheet, and we have a graphical representation on a single page for each test deck. And we're going to use Louisiana's data. Other states would want to use the data that from a test site appropriate for their weather, their climate conditions, or a combination of others. It's really up to the states. And that's another thing to emphasize what Catherine was saying earlier. AASHTO does not provide pass or fail data, just data. What you do with that data is up to the state. And if you want to dive deeper into all of that data that's out there, there is an export feature on the main data page. You can get all of the release data, all of the testing intervals from all of the states in a spreadsheet format. And it's a lot to explore, but for anybody who's a data geek, you can have a lot of fun. I'll turn this back over to Jim.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Yeah, he has some great tools to be able to take a look and see what the data means, and we'll talk a little bit about what some of this data means in just a few minutes. For VDOT, how do we use this stuff? Well, we use this data, as Jason said, we look at data from not only Virginia, but Louisiana and Arizona. Those are our main official test sites because we want to see how well this sheeting is going to do in many climates. Minnesota DOT is similar to Virginia, so we look at the VDOT, Louisiana, and Arizona data, but we do look at Minnesota's as well, just to see how they compare with Virginia. For Virginia, we require the sheeting to meet the D4956 specs for retro and color after 3 years, and we look at the 1 year data for the roll-up signs. We also require that the sheeting meet the physical requirements that Jason talked about. And VDOT specifies, normally we use the type 9 and the type 11 for all permanent and work zone signs. And then because we have a good understanding of signs and how they work, we are investigating the use of this data and our own testing to meet the MUTCD requirements for minimum retro of signs. And getting back to validating what these state labs do, we want to make sure that what data comes out of all the labs is good solid data. And so one thing that we do is to do a lab audit of all the state labs once every 3 years, and you can see the components of the audit listed here. We make sure they're following the specs. We make sure that they're trained appropriately with their instrumentation. We ensure that they follow calibration and documentation requirements. We also want to make sure that they understand how to use the DataMine system and how they enter the data and store the data. And we also require them to follow the testing timeline, which is covered in the sign sheeting work plan. We have to stay on a schedule of testing and reporting the data, and then the data will be released per the timeline schedule in the work plan. And then whoever's doing the testing in the labs and state labs, we want to make sure that they know how to do the testing. We look at what their test deck procedures are, and then we also talk about round robin testing. I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, these audits are set up where we will come in and have a meeting to talk about these items, and then we will have a closeout meeting and work through any problems that are found. I've been doing these audits for many years, and we have a great group of folks, and it's rare that there's any problem with what they do. They do an excellent job, all of these state test labs. And two things that we talked about, and Jason mentioned, each lab should have their own in-house QC test standards for retro and color, and they all have that, and they all have to test those QC standards before doing any of this testing at the different cycles. But in addition to that, we send out a set of what we call round robin panels, and each state tests these samples on a yearly basis, and then the lead state, Virginia, gets with the manufacturer's rep, and we go over this test data and to ensure that these results meet specifications for precision and bias in ASTM. So that's kind of a neat program that we can work with the manufacturers, and they can test these samples as well. And so we're making sure that we're all testing and seeing the same thing from these different types of sign reading standards. And so some of you may be saying, well, what's the use of doing all this? Why couldn't you maybe just get a certification from the manufacturer? And that can be okay too. Some people do that. Some people want to do their own testing. But I think using this program will help you to understand sign sheeting issues, some of the basics behind sign sheeting. You can see a picture to the right about prismatic lens sheeting. So you're going to learn quite a bit in using this data, and also go into our user's guide where we have these pictures, and you're able to understand, the difference between a prismatic lens and a glass beaded engineer grade sheeting. So the more you know, I think the better it's going to be for you to monitor your signs out on the road. Another big item is we sure want to find out what products work and which ones don't, so that we're not having a problem of signs failing and you're having to maybe close down a road to replace a sign. There are warranties for all these materials through the manufacturers, but if something fails, That warranty is not going to prevent you having to close the road. So the more you understand about signs, retroreflectivity, and color, and if you have a good monitoring program, I think you're going to prevent this costly problem of having to close a road to replace a bad sign. Just looking at some more information in the user's guides, we talk about sign sheeting and the retroreflectivity at different angles. You can see a diagram here of what we call the observation angle and the entrance angle. And that data, you can see at the red arrow on the right, is depicted by OBS, meaning the observation angle, and ENT, meaning the entrance angle. So the user's guide is pretty good in showing you the basics of this. Manufacturers are always happy to work with you to help you understand this too, but the user's guide is really good. Another component, as I said, is understanding the instruments. There's a portable retro instrument that we have used for many years to do the portable retroreflectivity of signs. And if you have your own, then you're able to monitor the signs that are on the road, and that's going to help you a lot if you're trying to meet MUTCD minimum specs for retroreflectivity. So being part of this program is just going to help you to better understand the technology behind sign sheeting. And we've thrown a lot of stuff at you. So just so you know, we're not going to leave you alone. If you have questions, and you need to walk through this stuff later on, we'll be glad to get with you and help you understand some of the technology here. Just another good diagram from the user's guide. When we talk about color, we have to graph our colors on an XY coordinate, and so there are many different boxes that you can see on the left of the CIE diagram, the color diagram, and there are different boxes or acceptable box areas that the sign color needs to fit into in order for it to meet the ASTM specification for color. And so on the right, you can see where in some cases, this is pretty rare, but in some cases you may see where the control sample C looks like it's looking pretty good compared to a weathered sample A and B. It looks like maybe the color is faded a little bit. So this user's guide will help you to understand what the graph means in the middle, and we have different data points plotted, and as you can see, moving from right to left, how over time you may have some color fading and going outside of that specification box. And I think this is where Bill talks a little bit about who all is using this. So take it away, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So Jim and Jason have both talked a little bit about how they're using this program. I've done some survey work here over the course of the summer, and I probably reached out to a number of you on this webinar here, gathering information on how the states are using the sign sheeting materials and roll-up sign evaluations. So this particular map here shows state use of the sign sheeting materials evaluation. It does not include the roll-up signs. And as I said, it reflects information that I gathered over the last couple of months. The green states shown here are states that require use of the sign sheeting materials evaluations for qualification or approval. Usually, or typically, it's for listing them on a approved products list or a qualified products list. The green states will not evaluate or will not consider use of the product unless the product has been evaluated by this program. The yellow states are states that will allow use of the sign sheeting materials of this evaluation in lieu of some other testing or documentation. It means they may be requiring independent testing or in-house testing or some certification of some sort, or they'll accept this testing from this program. The dark gray states are not using this program at all, and the white states I did not get a response from. But if you look at this map, it's interesting to see that the heaviest use is on the eastern side, eastern half of the country. So there's some obvious chances for benefiting your program. On the west side, there's a lot of growth opportunity here. And I would encourage you to reach out to some of these states that are in green and talk to them about how they're using the program. Perhaps you can get some good ideas on how to use it in your state. The next slide then, this one here is a similar thing. This one is for the roll-up signs. And again, the green states are those that require it. The yellow states are the ones that will allow it to be used in lieu of some other documentation or testing. And the gray states are those that are not using it. And again, it's primarily the eastern half of this, it's exclusively the eastern half of the country that's using or that's requiring these evaluations. So there's some opportunity for the states that are on the western states. There's some places here for you guys to gain some advantages in evaluating your sign sheeting materials. So I did get some input from a couple of states in addition to Louisiana and Virginia. Alabama, I had Stephen Ingram reached out and he said that he states that using the SSM and RUP evaluations has streamlined and reduced the cost of evaluating these products in the state. And he mentions the benefit of both sign sheeting producers and his department have clear expectation of what is needed for product evaluation in his state and for the time frame of doing that. And he also says that the Product Evaluation Audit Solutions program provides quick and easy access to test data from a reliable source. So that's an endorsement from Alabama. We also have a testimonial from Iowa from Scott Summers. Scott says that they use SSM and RUP evaluations to populate their approved products list. And given that their staffing has been reduced, they appreciate being able to use the test results provided by this program to confirm the performance of sign sheeting materials. And he mentioned that the importance of uniformity in how products are evaluated is important to them. And that's something with this program is you're getting your testing from one source. And Jason and Jim went over all the things that are done to make sure the data that you're getting is top notch. And all these products are evaluated side by side, the same way on the same test deck. And you're getting a consistent evaluation from one product to the other. So that's a good point that Scott makes. He also mentioned that the ability to have one-stop shopping for test results for multiple sign sheeting products is a great resource, and he also encourages you other states to use the program. So thanks to those gentlemen for providing their input. And then next thing is we have a YouTube channel. And the best way to tell you how to get to the YouTube channel, I guess, would be to tell you to go to our Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions homepage. The web page for that or the address for that is at the bottom of this slide. And on the left-hand margin of that slide, you can find a link to our YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, you can get information related to product evaluation and audit programs, the specific programs. There's quite a few of them there now. How to use DataMine, there's guidance provided there, videos for how to use DataMine. Presentations like this one we're doing today will be on that YouTube channel. There's a large number of them there now. I think there's something like 18 videos there of the various product evaluations and facility audits that we do. This one will show up there soon after we do this presentation. And again, if you go to the Product Evaluation and Audit Solutions homepage, you'll find a link to that. Another thing is, if you go to that page, you'll find access to all the different technical committees we have, including this one. If you go to each of those technical committees' homepages, you can get their work plans to see how the evaluation or audit is performed. Excuse me. And you could also access the user guide that Jim was just talking about. There's a lot of good information there, so that's a good link to remember, and I encourage you to go there. So,
Alrighty, thanks, Bill. So we did receive some questions, which we're going to go through in a little bit, but just to close out some of what was just discussed, some closing remarks here. So the recording of today's webinar will be made available on the YouTube channel that was Bill was just referencing. If you are interested in learning more about this program or participating and making sure that the program continues to be successful, I highly encourage you to join the technical committee. Again, there's no limitation with the number of individuals that are represented from each state agency. So even though you may have someone else within your agency part of the technical committee, if you want to expand your efforts from your state DOT and join the committee, reach out to Jim, Jason, myself. We can get you at it.